Wow. First, thank you for the wonder. I can't tell you, I am so humbled to be up here. And if anyone had ever thought that 5 years ago I would have, I'd be standing in front of a room full of wonderful educators, I would have personally have said, you're nuts. And I thank you, because to have this opportunity to not only tell my story, but to give you some insight that you probably haven't heard before is an incredible opportunity. So Kevin, thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you for the correctional educators. You have an amazing organization. It's been a wonderful few days. Start by a story, and it's a story that I heard several years ago, and it goes like this. There was a man, and the man is with a camel in the desert, and he's standing in the desert, and he hears this voice from up above, and the voice says, "Grab as many pebbles as you can and put it inside your camel bag. Travel for 1 day, and I promise you, it will either be the happiest day of your life or the saddest." He's sitting around, says, you know what, I'm not really doing anything, but I'm not going to weigh my camel down. So he picks his 3 pebbles, and he puts them in his saddlebag. He says, you know what, I'm not really doing anything, so I'm going to take a walk with my camel. And he does. Travels the day in the desert and falls asleep. He wakes up the next morning, and he opens his saddlebag. And inside his saddlebag were 3 diamonds. The pebbles that he had, actually the diamonds were the Cape May diamonds that you found in your bags. The diamonds that he had, the 3 diamonds that he found, he realized it was in fact the happiest day of his life, and it also was the saddest day. It was the happiest day of his life because he got 3 diamonds out of it. It was the saddest day of his life because imagine had he just filled his camel bag with all the stones that were around him and pebbles, how wealthy and how rich he could have been. When you leave today, I'm asking that you take 3 pebbles with you. 3 pebbles. The first pebble is a pebble of better understanding of what happens when someone leaves the courtroom and goes through our criminal justice system and through our educational system behind the walls. The second pebble is the realization that education and training for inmates behind the bars is the key to massive reduction in our rate of recidivism that's so vitally important. And third, and probably most importantly, is that you as educators inside, you matter. You matter. You don't hear it and you don't see it, but you truly do matter. We all have to start with the recognition that our criminal justice system is completely a mess. Forgive me my walk around, but I need to walk. Our criminal justice system is a mess. We have over 2 million people incarcerated in the United States. It's the highest per capita of any country by far in the world. This recent pie graph came out, and I'll make my slides available. There's not that many, but we have 1.3 million people incarcerated in our state system. About 200,000 are in our federal prison system, and currently 633,000 that are in our local jails. You can't see this number up, but if you see the orange, the 633,000 of local people behind bars, the saddest part of that is that 440,000 of those people are incarcerated right now, and they haven't been convicted. They sit behind bars for one simple reason: they can't afford bail. They can't afford bail. When you look at the numbers, If you were born in 2001, 1 in 3 black males will find themselves behind bars. Wow. 1 in 6 Latino men, 1 in 17 white men, and 1 in 9 in our population will find themselves behind bars. There are currently over 40,000 laws that can put somebody behind bars. Is there a problem in our criminal justice system? Yeah, there's a problem. We have 636,000 people in the United States return every year back into society. 636,000. In Philadelphia, where I come from, we have 35,000. That's like taking 4 of our largest counties and saying you're now unemployed, you need to now find work. In the United States, we have 70 million people with criminal records. That number in and of itself is astounding. There's a realization we all have to face, is that 96% of all people that are incarcerated are someday going to get out. And we have to think about what's going to happen when they come back and when they walk back through those gates. It is my firm belief that the key to our correctional problem is education. It's education. And it lies in the numbers that are out there that statistically tell us, the commissioner stole my numbers yesterday, sorry, but 43% chance in the reduction of recidivism for those people that go through correctional education. 17% higher chance, likelihood of post-release employment. It's huge. 70% of all people that are behind bars have low literacy levels. Education holds the key to solving our incarceration problem. So many of you are saying, well, what's this guy doing standing up here today telling us and rattling off all these figures for? So I guess you should know a little bit about me. My name is Jeffery Abramowitz, and I'm a director of Community Learning Center in Philadelphia. We are an adult education agency. We deal with the hardest to serve in Philadelphia, in North Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, and Center City. We help people get their GED, their high set. We give them ESL support. We give them academic support so they can get back to work. We teach them math. We teach them reading. We give them soft skills, resume building, communication skills, conflict resolution. We help them and hold their hand as they walk through the process of the interviews and getting back into the employment world. I haven't been in this position very long. There is a great quote by John Maxwell. He said, "A man must be big enough to admit his mistakes, smart enough to learn from them, and strong enough to correct them." So my story began about 7 years ago. I was a lawyer in Philadelphia for 20 years, a civil trial lawyer. I was probably at the very height of anyone's legal career. As a senior partner, I tried hundreds of cases in Philadelphia. Had a nice cushy office, beautiful home, car, wife, wonderful daughter. Had everything you could ask for. Everything. I made some really bad choices about 7 years ago, and those choices landed a federal indictment. That federal indictment, to say that it changed my life is to minimalize it. To say that it was tough is nothing. When that federal indictment came down, my world changed. Sometimes when you have everything, you don't realize how good you have it until it's all stripped and taken away from you. When my federal indictment came down, I stopped practicing law. And I realized that I needed to accept responsibility for what I had done, and I needed to try and figure out why. trying to figure out why. So they say that the two most important days of someone's life, and if you're in my workshop, don't answer this question, but the two most important days of someone's life are the day they're born, and everyone's quick to say it's the day you die. I say, no, that's not true. The two most important days of somebody's life are the day they're born, and then the day they figure out why. The day you figure out why you're born. That day came for me March 12, 2012. I sat in front of a courtroom, in front of television cameras, the press, my family, my friends, my colleagues, judicial people in the bar and the judiciary that I knew, and sat there as the judge sentenced me to 5 years in the federal penitentiary. Sat there as I was supposed to have self-reported. Didn't work out that way. I was handcuffed in the courtroom, my tie removed, my belt removed, my shoes taken from me, and in front of the full courtroom walked out and taken into a holding cell in the back. For me, that time, that day, when that judge's gavel came down, that was when something clicked. Something clicked in my head that told me, you need to figure this out. You need to figure out why, and you need to learn. You need to learn from your mistakes, and you need to take as much as you can and try and figure it out. And boy, did I do that. Because the second that you walk away, the second you walk away from your family and you go back and you go into that holding cell and you get processed, what do you become? For me, I became 617-64066. That was my federal number. That's who I became. In a large part, that's still who I am. I still to this day carry my identification in my wallet. Not that I need a constant reminder, but that I have it. You lose everything when you go inside. Every money, every piece of property that you have, every penny that you own. And when you're incarcerated, you realize, you know what? You're all wearing green. Guys say this inside all the time. You're wearing green. We're all wearing green. Because no one is better than anybody else. When you're inside, you're all equal. The lessons that I learned from that second to this very moment are so daunting. They are so incredible that I need to be here and I need to share them with you so that you understand what my passion is and why what you do is so important. I spent four years away. I was really glad to see there's two individuals here from one of my former homes. USP, the FDC Philadelphia, the Federal Detention Center in Philadelphia. There's two young ladies here who I had an opportunity to talk with. And yeah, they oversaw me. They were the ones that watched over me. They were the ones that gave me my first GED book and said, here, go to it. I said, go to what? They said, you were a lawyer, go teach. I said, teach what? I haven't done math. I didn't even know who Pythagorean was. Doesn't matter, go to it. I said, well, where's the program? Where's the classroom? What classroom? You're in a cell. Go hit a cell. I learned so many lessons while I was away, but I was in FDC. And when you're inside, you see it from a different side. But for me, I was a white Jewish lawyer whose first two cellmates were serving double life terms. My first cellmate didn't look at me for the first 3 weeks. It wasn't until he found out I was a lawyer that he said, huh. You never know. So I went through Philadelphia and learned the hard way that we were all equal, and took some really took some lessons and learned some lessons from people that were inside about how to survive prison. And I did it, and I sucked it all up. Every experience to me, everything that happened, whether it was good or bad, I just tried to learn from it, try and understand it a little bit better. But my ride and my journey just started. So my journey started in FDC Philadelphia, and then several months later I was transferred to a facility in Waymark, Pennsylvania called USP Canaan. Anybody here from Canaan? I hope not. I was at USP Canaan. USP Canaan is one of the 4th toughest facilities in the entire country. It's not a supermax, but pretty darn close. Most, if not just about every person at USP Canaan, their exit date is death, to give you an idea. Well, thank God I wasn't inside the walls very long, because I was there for a short time before I was transferred into the camp that serviced the USP. The lessons I learned from that camp and from the men inside were incredible. The lessons I learned about education, I will never forget. Why? Because when I got to USP Canaan, and this is a federal facility, I realized that there really wasn't a curriculum for anything. I taught over 50 courses while I was away at FDC, at USP Canaan. I taught everything from GED math to political science to media literacy, which was current events. You name it, we found a way to get it taught there. And you know what? There was no curriculum. Not one. Not one. What we did was we had to sit down and we had to use the ACE book. We had to sit down with that book and we had to try and figure out, well, this class is public speaking, sort of it's public speaking. Okay, we'll call it that. And we just made up names so that we could teach a class there. There was very little support from the education realm at USP Canaan. I learned so much while I was away about life and about learning. And you know what? Most of what I learned was from inmates. They were people that were inside. You have tools. You have men and women that are inside that are smart, that are brilliant, that made some bad choices like myself, but that have so much to offer. Whether it's tutoring or just teaching lessons about life. So I took every experience I could. I decided I was going to take this experience, I was going to make it the best. I was going to change my life, and it did. So I read over 1,000 books while I was away, and I took all these classes, and I learned to do things I never imagined doing before. I worked in the garage at USP Canaan and learned how to change oil in a car. I thought that oil in my car was changed by the Lexus guy. I had no idea where oil was on a car. Because for 25 years, somebody did it for me. I learned about people. I learned about the inmates that were behind those walls. That everybody had a story to tell. And that those stories to tell, they were impactful. And they brought something with them. So one of the first people I met when I got transferred to USP Canaan was a man named Shahada. Shahada was Palestinian, member of the PLO. So let's understand this. A Jew and a Palestinian, yeah, not so much. Not so much. So what happened was, Shahada had not looked at me, would not even look at me the entire time I was there. So I got a job at Unicor. And there's a big warehousing project, and we were baling paper, 3,000-pound bales of paper, and it was tough work. It was really hard work. So we set out one day, and I got assigned the same baling machine as Shahada. And starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, going through 4:30 in the afternoon, neither one of us would take a break, go to the bathroom, or have a bottle of water in the middle of the summer while baling 3,000 pounds bales of paper. And we went toe-to-toe, and neither one of us were going to quit. We weren't going to quit. We got done at 4:30, and Shahada turns to me and he says, "Yeah, Mr. A, you're okay." And we started talking. And it turns out Shahada was born in Jerusalem, and I had been to Jerusalem several times. So we started talking about where he was from, his family. We had an instant connection. We got, during the time away, got to discuss politics. We never agreed eye to eye on exactly who was right or who was wrong. It didn't really matter. But we talked about it. walk back to the unit, and as we get back to the unit, we're walking inside, and I see everybody in the unit starts running up to the front doors. Like, what's going on? They all bet. They bet whether the Jew or the Palestinian was going to win. Yeah, I don't have to tell you. A lot of people lost that day. A lot of people lost. You guys are my pebble. You're my pebble. Because what you do as educators is so important. But you need to know, and you have to understand the barriers that individuals face when they leave facilities, whether it's state, federal, or local. And one of the biggest barriers that we face is the reality that we live in a digital world. We live in a digital world. I had the commissioners here yesterday, and just for a second I said, you know what, if you're going to do anything, just get computers. Get them computers. Get them literate, so when they leave, they have a fighting chance. I was so glad during this conference to see so many digital literacy organizations here, and organizations with programs on tablets, and all these great programs that they want to bring inside. But we all know the reality. The reality is that digital literacy just inside falls under this blanket of security. And I'm sorry. I think it's been proven without a doubt that if we really want computers and if we really want digital literacy in our facilities, that it can happen and it can be done safely so that people can get educated on using a computer and trying to navigate that process. We know that things have changed when it comes to the GED and the high set and high school diploma. Why has it changed? Does anybody know why it's changed? It's changed because the test has changed. It's not easy to get your GED anymore. It takes time. It's hard work. And for returning citizens, it's even harder. By the way, just for an aside, the word reentry, just so we all use it, and it's a big buzzword, reentry is just a date and time. It's just a date and time. It's a day the person comes out. It's not about reentry, it's about reintegration. It's about getting people back to sustainable jobs, to their families, so that they can become productive members of society again. But the GED has become an important thing. It's a credential that's needed. My agency does it for many people. But the test is very hard. It's hard because the philosophy has changed. The philosophy of the GED used to be, we want to get people to a level where they're high school caliber. It's not that way anymore. The GED philosophy is all about getting people college prepared. Sorry guys, my students aren't going to college. Very few are. Very few are. With the hardest to serve in Philadelphia and many people that are behind bars with low literacy skills, college is not their #1 priority. It's getting back to work. It's getting a sustainable job so it keeps them off their streets. It's financial security. And several years ago, we passed the WIOA bill, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. If you're not familiar with it, you should be, because that act is so vitally important for our future and what's going on right now in education. WIOA now puts the priority not on just academics and just for people getting it, but it's also about one step further. It's also about training people, giving them education skills so they can get into a trade. Very important. So, learning about education and putting it all together, I have to tell you that my journey took an even more incredible turn as I returned to Philadelphia. And you as educators must understand this. When someone leaves your facility, the barriers and challenges that they face are just starting. They are just starting. Because I will tell you without question, and I say this to everyone I ever speak to, that the hardest and most difficult and most challenging time I ever faced was when I left my facility and went to that halfway house. I went to a rat-infested, bug-infested facility with over 300 men of all backgrounds. I went into a facility where I ate barely one meal I was there 8 months, the entire time I was there. Had I known, I would have pled and not taken my good time and stayed inside, without a doubt. My facility that I went to had more drugs running through my room than in most of the worst sections of Philadelphia. And that is a tragedy. I am so glad to say, about a month ago, my facility was closed by the federal and state government. Thank God. No one else should ever have to go through that. I was more incarcerated when I left my facility than when I was inside. I got lucky. Boy, did I get lucky. I got lucky because as I'm walking out of my facility one day on a pass, I walked by the corner of Broad and Lehigh to Community Learning Center, and a lady was sitting behind a desk. I said, "Ma'am, I need a job. I just need something." So I gave her my resume, and she's shaking her head. So I came back the next week on another pass from the library, and I walked in. I said, "Ma'am, did you give my resume to your executive director?" And she looks at me and she says, "Son, I am the executive director, and I'm laying off all my staff." Now, if you remember last September, Pennsylvania had a budget crisis, and all the funds, both federal and state, were frozen for all the nonprofits. So she's laying off all her staff. I said, "Look, you don't have to pay me anything. You just gotta say I got a job. That's all. Just say I can come here. I'll teach GED math. You can keep your doors open. I'll answer phones, take the trash out." The one condition was that when the funding came back, that she find a place that she thought I'd be appropriate. So last January, I became a director at Community Learning Center. I will tell you that my passion is because I've lived this. My passion for reentry and dealing with people that are returning is because I get it, I understand. And now my mission is to tell people what it's all about. So I've had the opportunity to work with Career Links, which are your one-stops in New Jersey, and we've started a reentry program there that just got funded for the full year. So when men and women come out, their first place they can come to is my workshop every single Tuesday. And all the halfway houses will give them passes to come there. So we could sit for 3 hours and we could help them navigate the process of what they need to know and how they need to know it and what they need to do from a very practical standpoint. How do you get tokens? How do you travel around the city? Where do I get fed if I don't have a meal? Where do I get clothing for a job interview? All those really basic things. It's not discussed when you're inside. I was given my $16.80 on a card and said, "See you, Mr. Abramowitz, good luck." Wow. And I can navigate the system. I have a head on my shoulder, I think. When I was inside, I believe that much of education not only came from the returning citizens, but it became a creativity thing. We had a Shark Tank when we were inside. We played the game Shark Tank. Guys would come up their businesses and they'd present them to a pool of people. We taught a ServSafe class inside. I was ServSafe certified before I went in. So I said, just send my book in, and they did. So they sent my book in and I started teaching a class on ServSafe. And then I went to the warden and said, "Warden, all we need you to get these people paid. They can't afford it. Can you pay for the tests?" And he said, "Yeah, I think there's funding available for that." So we started a ServSafe program so men walked out of the facility with ServSafe certificates. We taught a CDL class. I've never driven a truck before. I had no idea. No idea. But I did know that I could get the book inside, the CDL book. And I did know that I could have a class. And I did know that there were men in our unit that were truck drivers. Wow. There were guys in there that driven a truck for 25 years. These guys knew rigs better than anybody. So they stepped forward and boy, did they glow standing in front of
their fellow inmates and said, yeah, I drove a truck and I'm going to tell you, this is how you hook it in, this is how you back it up, and this is how you do what you need to do. And they were proud of it. And it gave them some purpose inside because they became the teachers. They became the teachers. When we talk about reentry, we talk about getting back in the game. I talk about it as, or analogize it to a game of football. Sorry, but I had to get my one Eagles picture in there. It's very much like the game of football. And it is, because one of the first things you need when you get out is what? You need a resume. Wow. You need a resume. You need to have that resume prepared when you walk out that door. That's one of your tools, one of your pieces of your equipment. That's your helmet. That's your body armor. You need that in order to move forward. You need that resume. You need the cover letter. You need some of those skills. You need some direction. You need the resources of where to go, how to find jobs, who to tap, who to talk to, where to go. It's over and over again. You need to get back in the game. So being prepared and having a game plan, knowing what your strategy is, sending people home and saying, go find a job, go on the internet and look, doesn't do it anymore, especially for people that are returning, because they're branded as felons. And we have a very different take on ban-the-box laws. Yes, they're great steps. For those of you who don't know, ban-the-box are the laws that say you can't ask the question when you're filing for a job application, have you ever committed a felon? Can't ask that question. In Philadelphia, as in New Jersey, you can't ask the question. Matter of fact, in Philadelphia, you can't ask it until you get a conditional offer of employment. Interesting. Problem, two things. One, there's like 3,000 exceptions to the law, so you have everybody from school districts to hospitals to everybody, anything in the pharmaceutical field or police field or anything like that, they're all exempt. But more importantly, a more basic thing is, as a returning citizen, if you think I am going to report Comcast or Aramark for violating a law when I'm trying to get a job with them, it ain't happening. It's just not happening. So laws are coming into place, and they are moving forward, and they're sort of having some impact. But I think what people really need to understand is that when returning citizens come out, that is the very basic principles of getting around on a computer, financial literacy, all those soft skills that they have. Those are the things that they really need. They need that direction. They need to know where to go, and more importantly, they need the resources to get there. They need the resources to get there. There's a great program called My Next Move. It's part of ONET. I have every one of my students do it. It's under mynextmove.org. And you know what it's all about? It's about having somebody or helping somebody find their passion, what they really love to do. How many men in my position and women have a chance for a do-over in life? They get to do it all over again. So helping them find their passion, what their next move is incredible. Because for me, anyone that comes to see me in any of my workshops or when I talk to them, and I was in Graterford Prison recently speaking to 102 life inmates that are about to be released. Incredible. Some of these guys have been in 30, 40, 50 years, but because of a state law that said you can't convict a juvenile for life, they have to get resentenced. Many of these men are now going to be seeing the outside walls. Having them find that career pathway. So when they come to me and say, I'll take anything, I just need a job. No. It doesn't work. It can't be about anything. So when you work with your people inside, it's not about anything. It's about helping them find what their passion is. Because statistically, if they do anything, when they're at McDonald's and they're done frying fries, they're going to be back out on the streets again. And it's not going to take real long for them to figure out that I can't fry fries all my life. It's helping them find their passion, where they really want to be, where they want to go to. That's what it's all about. So, my third pebble that you should know is the pebble of you, and that you matter. We know that statistically, statistically, we know the numbers, that education is going to help returning citizens. But for all of you that sit in this room right now, I want you to know something. You're being asked to dig this huge moat around a castle. And you're being told to do it with a sand shovel. You need to be advocates. And you need to say, if I'm going to do my job and do it well, you know what I need? I need some support. And I need to get some help. And I need good materials. I need current materials, not materials from GED books that were from 10 years ago. I need current materials. I need to be able to have my students access a computer, whether it's on the internet or not. We need the tools that are going to help educate our students. And our students, because they're going to be the ones that are returning. They're the ones going forward. I am so humbled at being here, and I can't thank you enough for all that you do. I'm going to end with one story because I want you to remember this story, and I want to ask that next time you talk to one of your students that you bring this up to them. There was a king who made an offer, and his offer to the village was this: if you build my castle and you do it within a week, then we'll give you the nicest homes you could find and the best jobs available. People were going to do anything. There's one little problem. Right where the king's castle was going to be is a well. So they got to get rid of the well first. So what did they do? They brought in the local mule. And the mule, he knew he was doing something wrong. He walked too close to the well. And he fell inside. So the townspeople all got around and they tried to get him out with ropes and pull him out and yank him out, and nothing worked. Nothing at all. And they had a decision to make. They said, look, we're going to waste all of our time trying to get this mule out. But there's got to be another alternative. So they said, yeah, we just need to just dig him in. So they started throwing dirt into the well. And shovel after shovel. And with every shovel, the mule was yelling and screaming. Shovel after shovel, and his screams are getting louder. And after about 20 minutes, it was silent. They said, he probably died. So they keep shoveling, they fill up the well. And as they're getting to the top, one of the workers goes and he looks inside the well, and he sees the mule standing there. What was happening was, as they're shoveling the dirt inside the well, the mule is stamping it down and standing on it. As the new dirt comes down, he's standing on that and then pushing that down until it gets all the way up. And he jumps out and he goes on his merry way. Returning citizens and people that have made mistakes and that have been imprisoned, we often make bad choices. And sometimes when you go through the system and when you get out, it feels like people are throwing dirt, shovel after shovel after shovel. Let your students know, let them know that there are ways, that they need to stamp down the dirt and keep moving on. Because as much as they scream and yell, it's not going to change anything. It takes them to do it. It takes them to make the difference. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. I cannot thank you enough for inviting me to be here. And again, I think, and you all have my immense admiration for what you do. I will do everything in my power for as long as I remain on this earth to make sure that people that are behind the walls have a voice, and that people that are way up here making those decisions start understanding that they're not forgotten, that they're going to be back in our society, and we have to start recognizing it. So thank you very much.